In late 2007, Israeli experts announced that talking as little as 10 minutes on a microwave phone triggers changes in brain tissues linked to the abnormal cell division and cancer. And we're just getting so many of these studies, and what's shocking about these studies is how quickly these brain fibrils and proteins are damaged and deformed, and how quickly this abnormal cell division and cancer proclivity takes place. So pretty soon you're going to be on that phone for 10 minutes. So that's really a good warning for people. Speaker phone only. We had 3 cancer specialists on Larry King Live several weeks ago telling the American people, speaker phones only. They don't put this stuff on their head. And now Bluetooth is a wonderful subject because what I'm reading from the experts, and of course I just consume everything I can read, is that the Bluetooth devices we see people wandering around with are very dangerous. When you attack the unborn, when you attack the fetus with this lethal radiation, that's really low. And for decades it's been confirmed that both extremely low frequency and microwaves can cause gross genetic damage in both parents and their offspring. And that's something that's quite a subject. The U.S. government, and specifically the military, has been hiding the effects of microwave radiation for decades. They simply cannot tell the truth about radar installations and all these high-tech things for the military. Men who carry cell phones have damaged sperm. Now, that's coming out of laboratories everywhere, even American laboratories. And now researchers are saying that autism may be coming, much of it that is, may be coming from damaged cells before the child is even conceived. And what I hate to see is all of these young women wearing these radio transmitters, and that's all a cell phone is, a radio transmitter on their reproductive organs as a fashion statement. Every time that phone rings on that young woman, that the ova in her ovaries are blasted with this teratogen. And, we're born with our eggs. We don't get any new eggs. So the whole time this young woman is, through her young years, she's blasting her ovaries with this teratogen. She is really, really taking a huge risk, and nobody in America has been told this by our health agencies. This is a disgrace.
Yeah, but if they're limiting the gene pool and compromising the gene pool, infertility rates are skyrocketing for people in this country.
Yeah, maybe that's part of the plan, too.
Yes, it is. Well, they don't want reproduction. It's about depopulation and I guess you can call it culling the herd. And
yes, but we have to remember that a damaged sperm and damaged ova don't necessarily mean there won't be a baby. It just means there's going to be a damaged baby. And one in 20 babies right now is born with some kind of defect that's immediately obvious. And many of these defects coming down the pike from wireless are not going to be obvious until maybe years later. In fact, there's a great new study just out. Scientists in Denmark collaborated with scientists at UCLA, and they've done a study on 13,000 women in Denmark who use cell phones while pregnant, and guess what? Their babies seem to be okay, some of them, most of them, I suppose, when they were born, but by the time those kids get to school, they have all kinds of behavioral and emotional difficulties, and that's from women who use cell phones during pregnancy.
I think what a lot of parents don't understand is that they're special needs kids who have learning disabilities or behavioral disorders. These are neurological problems. These are problems within the brain. That's right. Not explained to parents. They think that, their kid is special in some ways, which is, it's true, but it's not a good kind of special, and when you have that many children, putting a load on that many parents and teachers and the society in general, they have to become wards of the state. Eventually, the state will prescribe treatments for them en masse. So,
you can talk to a school teacher who's been in the teaching business for decades, 20, 30 years, and they'll all tell you, down to a person, that kids in school today are totally different than the kids 20, 30 years ago. They don't learn the same. I had a young teacher tell me, who has classes that are not special ed classes, that she estimates about 30% of her so-called normal kids have some kind of learning disability. 30%.
I know. 1 in 5 kids is learning disabled or has special needs now. I have a friend who's a teacher, 5th grade teacher, and he just said it's shocking. The teachers can't keep pace with it. And it's very demoralizing for the teachers also.
Absolutely.
You know. So anyway, we are discussing you also mentioned on your outline, childhood illnesses are epidemic. Obesity, would you relate obesity to this? Because you're saying the digestive functions aren't working correctly?
That's exactly right. And the reason so many children are obese is probably because they're not very active. They're, all tied up with their computers and their white toys. But more importantly, a child that's obese may have a problem with the thyroid. In fact, it's very likely. And we know that thyroid hormones, which many of them originate in the brain, say in the pituitary just shuts down when a cell phone goes to the head, and that radiation flows into the brain. That's been shown in many studies. If a child is not getting his thyroid stimulating hormone, he's not making his T3, he's not making his T4. Those are metabolic hormones from the thyroid. He's going to be a fat little kid. And nobody's taking that into account.
Well, here they're also kind of exploiting the American parents' concern for safety, because I'm noticing in your outline that you say that foreign governments and health agencies warn that kids shouldn't use cell phones at all, nobody under 18. Yet in America, every child has their own cell phone, so their mother can keep track of where they are and whose house they want to go to after school.
Yeah, isn't that a riot? How do you make a kid safe? By making him sick. That's ridiculous. And when you look at the statistics on how many kids are using these phones for how many hours, it's shocking. I mean, there's going to be 31 million young cell phone users by the year 2010. 31 million. The childhood cell phone use is the most important subject that we could even discuss. So we need to convince parents that this is very, very dangerous for children. We were saying that 31 million kids are going to be on cell phones within the next 2 years, and that 10.5 million of those won't even be teenagers. I mean, they're younger than teen. And it's good money for the telecom industry. They want kids to entertain themselves and keep those towers buzzing. But what we need to share with parents is that there are a lot of medical issues. First of all, microwave phones can make kids hearing impaired. And that's so important. If a kid starts out using a microwave phone, or whether that's a household cordless phone or a cell phone, and he's on that microwave phone for hours at a time, and by the way, the latest statistics are that kids between the age of 10 to 17 are admitting to using a microwave phone an average of almost 4 hours a day. So we've got the American Academy of Otolaryngology telling us that cell phone radiation incrementally damages the inner ear. It causes high-frequency hearing loss. And those who talk an hour a day or more, say this study, will sustain the most damage. And what does that tell us about kids? I mean, you say you're going to keep them safe by keeping track of them, but are we accomplishing anything to have a generation of kids that are deaf by the time they get to young adulthood?
Yeah, well, as I said, this is marketed to the families as something that's great, and the decisions have to be made by individuals, starting with the parents if it's involving kids.